We're going to be working on solving absolute value inequalities. Who could tell me, who remembers the symbols of the inequalities? What are the symbols of the inequality? Huh? What are they? What are the symbols of inequality? Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. Okay? Always go back to your previous notes if you need to recall these things. It's always important until you understand it fully. Always go back and study it. Okay. What are we going to be doing? Solving absolute value. It's an absolute inequality. Is an equality that contains an absolute value expression. Okay. So what did we do in lesson 2.4? We did the compound equality, right? When we have the and the what? And or, right? What was and happening? What was happening in and? They were what? Like intersecting, correct? They were intersecting. And what about in or? What was happening in or? They were going basically almost the opposite way, right? In different directions. Now, so if you recall, who recalls absolute value? Yes. What is absolute value?
So if it's a -2, it'd be +2.
The absolute value of, okay. So, but what does it mean? Is the distance between what? Is the distance?
Between the numbers and the numbers.
In the number line, right? From 0, correct? So if I have the absolute value of -6, what is the absolute value of -6? 6. And what if I have 6? Absolute value of 6?
It's just 6.
It's still what?
6.
It's still 6. Doesn't mean that anything that's going to come out of an absolute value, it's going to be what?
Positive.
It's going to always be positive. Anything inside the absolute, it's going to be what?
Positive.
It's going to be positive. The expression can be. Now, can the inside of it be negative or positive?
Yeah.
Right? And it's still going to come out?
Positive.
Positive. So remember that. That's important. Remember why it comes out positive. Okay? Everything comes out positive. But what if say I have a negative outside and a -6 inside? What's my answer here? Negative what? -6. And I have a negative and a +6 inside will be what? It will still be what? -6. Right? Why? Because it's outside. It's outside the absolute value. It's not inside. Okay, so let's go. That inequality, this is where it gets fun. Okay, this is where it gets fun, and I need everyone to please pay attention because it does get fun over here. All right. The inequality absolute value of x less than 2 means the distance between x and 0 is less than 2. Does that make sense? What's the absolute value here? It's telling me what? That x is what? X is less, the absolute value of x is less than 2, right? Means the distance between x and 0 is less than what? Than 2. So, can it be -2 and 2? Can x be -2 and 2? Or no?
Yes.
Can be negative. Why? Because it would negative, it's going to come out to what? Is 2 going to be less than 2? Is that possible? No, right? Would it be possible if it was less than or equal to?
Yeah.
Right? So there is a difference. Okay, there is a difference as to when it's positive and to when it's not. So what I want you guys to, here is where I want you guys to start writing. Okay, here's where I want you to start writing. If you have the less sign, the less than, or the less than or equal to sign, you remember a compound? What was a compound? We have what? And what? And or. When it's less than or less than equal to, we're going to use and. Okay? It's going to be and. When it's greater or greater or equal to, we're going to use or. That's the one thing, okay? So do you see where and here in your example, it's what? It's intersecting in the middle, correct? And the or is going where? Two different directions, correct? The line is going two different ways. What does the and mean? So, when your answers, let's say I have x plus 1, which is the absolute value of x plus 1 is less than 1. Is my 1 positive? Is my 1 positive here? The one on the left, on the right-hand side, not the one inside the absolute. Is my 1 positive? Okay, so we need to first identify my answer is positive. And what else? On top of it's positive, it's what? Am I going to have an and or? Is it going to be and or? It's going to be what? And. Okay? So when we do that, did we establish that the inside of the absolute value could be negative or positive? Can the inside of the absolute value be negative or positive and still come out positive? Yes? Okay, so then that means we're going to have what? X plus 1 is less than 1, and x plus 1 is greater than negative 1. Why do I have two expressions now? Who am I? Exactly. The x could be what? Positive or negative. So we know that my x can be positive or negative results in there. What's going to happen? I need to make two different expressions. Why? Because my x could be negative or positive, correct? So why do I switch my sign to x plus 1 is greater than negative 1? One I kept the same, correct? The first part I kept the same. X plus 1 is less than 1, and x plus 1 is greater than negative 1. Why? Because I equaled my 1 to what? To a negative. So when you do a negative, you do the what? The opposite, the inverse, right? Which is going to be positive 1. Inverse of positive 1 is what? Negative. Remember what integers are. Is the whole numbers and their opposites, right? So in inequality, we were multiplying or dividing with a negative. What's happening? We have to switch our signs, no? In this case, we have what now? A negative 1. Can I now work this out? Yes. So it's going to be what? Minus 1 on both sides, right? X is less than 0. And what about the next one? I'm going to have negative 1 on both sides. X is greater than negative. What's negative 1 minus 1? Negative 2. So if I was to graph it, should it meet? Should it meet? Right? It's an and. Are they going to intersect? Yes. So that means if I was to graph it, I'm going to have what? 0 and? Should I put 0 there, or should I put negative 2 and 0 here? Like that, right? We always have to order it. My 0 is going to be open or closed? Open. And it's going to the? And my negative 2, is it going to be open or closed? And it's going to the? Okay. So that's where we have and. So we're going to have two different expressions. That is when it's what? What was my, I had a positive, correct? My one was positive. But what happens did everybody, I hope everybody wrote that because we need to. Now, what happens if my answer is negative? What do you think it's going to happen? I'm still going to be in. What happens if now instead I have what? What am I going to have instead? I'm going to have the absolute value of x. Let me do it yellow so that you guys can see it. I'm going to have what? X plus 1 is less than negative 1. What do you think it's going to, what do you think that is? Let's pay attention to that. What do you think that's going to be? Absolute value of x plus 1 is less than negative 1. What do you think it's going to be now? Remember, before we had a what? Before it was positive and we had to have two expressions, right? And it was going to be and. But now I have x plus 1 is going to be less than negative 1. I want you guys to analyze that. Think about the rule that we said. Anything inside A is going to be what? It's not possible. So it's going to be what? No solution. Why is it not possible? Because it's going to be a positive, right? Absolute value of x plus 1, it's going to come out positive. Is a positive always ever going to be less than a negative? No, that's not possible. So it's going to be no solution. Got it? But now we're going to do the or. Okay, so we had the and, but now we're going to have the or. And the or is going to be what? Greater than or greater than equal to. That's going to be or. So let's say I have x plus 1 is greater than, the absolute value of x plus 1 is greater than 1. Is my answer positive? So I'm going to have two, how many expressions? 2. So I'm going to have x plus 1 is greater than 1, or, because it's greater than, right? Or x plus 1 is what now? Less than what? What is it? Less than what? Negative 1. 1 is less than negative 1. Can I now do my computation? X is greater than what? Than 0. Or x is what? Less than negative? Negative 2. What do you think it's happening there? Okay. Can I graph it now? I'm going to have 0 here and negative 2. Where's my 0? Am my 0 going to be open or closed? Open. And I'm going to the what? To the what? To the right. And what about my negative 2? Is going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the left. Okay? That is when there's what? Or. Got it? That's when it's or. So or, always remember, or is going to be greater than or greater than or greater than or equal to. Less than or equal to is going to be and. But now, what if I have now? Now it's going to be with my negatives, okay? Now we're going to have negatives. What if I have the absolute value of x plus 1 is greater than negative 1. This is or, correct? We did before the and. So we established that the and is going to be what? No solution, correct? What's going to happen with now or? Because now we have greater than. What's happening here? Can it be no solution?
No.
Is it going to be no solution?
No.
I want everybody to think. What would it be here?
All real numbers.
What is it?
All real numbers.
All real numbers. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Whatever number comes out of the absolute value, it's going to be positive. Is a positive always going to be greater than negative?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, it's always going to be greater than negative. Can I work it out? No. Why? Because it's a negative 1. Automatically I know it's a negative 1 and it's greater than, it's all real numbers. If it would have been less than and a negative, no solution. All right, let's go on to the next slide. The next slide here where we have is the solving absolute value inequalities. This is the same notes that we just did before. So use this one as a visual to go back to solving absolute value inequalities. When you have the and and the or, when it's greater than or greater than equal to or less than equal to. Got it? Let's do some example because I want you guys to start doing. Can you guys see here? Yes? No? Maybe? Yes. Okay. What's the first thing I told you to identify? We're going to identify if it's positive and we're going to identify if it's what? If it's going to be and or. Correct? Is this positive? So I already know that this is positive. Let me just write a positive sign up here. I know it's positive. And what else? Is it going to be and or? It's going to be what? So what do I do right away? So it's going to be two expressions. X plus 7 is less than 2. And x plus 7 is what? Greater than or equal to what? You flip it. Why do we flip it?
Because
It's a negative. We're inversing it, right? We're basically inversing our whole what? Equation. Because we're already saying that x plus 7 is less than or equal to 2. If we reverse it, it's going to be now the x plus 7 is going to be greater than a negative, correct? Okay, so what do I do with my 7? On both sides, so x is less than or equal to? Negative 5. And on the second expression, do I still subtract? X is greater than or equal to? Negative 9. Right? And I'm going to? So I have a negative 5 here and a negative 9. My negative 5, it's going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the? What about negative 9? Is it open or closed? And it's going to the? Is it intersecting? So that means that correct with end, right? Now let's look at B. I just want you guys to study B. Just study B. It's a what? Why is it no solution? It's going to be no what? Absolutely. Why is it no solution? Because I'm going to have a positive number less than 0, correct? Is that possible? No, correct? It is not possible. Our positive numbers are always going to be greater than 0. And if, let's say in the instance that you guys decide to say, oh, 0 is positive. Is 0 ever positive or 0 ever negative? So I cannot write two expressions and say that one is positive and then the other and the 0 is negative. No? So it's going to be no solution. Let's go on to the next. Did everybody write this down? Okay, let's go on to the next so that we can, okay, that A, by the way, I always, when I retype it, I always forget to do what? That's going to be a 5, okay? It's C minus, it's going to be a 5. Write a 5 down over here. Okay, write a 5. I always have a tendency to. All right. Now, we're in the same thing. Let's identify. Is it positive? Yes. It's positive, right? Is it and or? So I'm going to have C minus 1 is greater than or equal to 5, or C minus 1 is what? Negative 5. Can I work it out? I'm going to add 1 to both sides, correct? C is greater than 6, or C is what? Less than or equal to? Negative 4. So I'm going to have a 6 here, a negative 4 somewhere here, correct? And I'm ready to graph it. Is my 6 going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the? What about my negative 4? Going to the left. That's it. What about now B? What is B going to be? What is it? All real numbers. Why? Okay, all real numbers are solutions. What about C? C, now we have what? Now we have a 4 in front of our absolute value, and we have a plus 1 after our absolute value, correct? What should I do here now? What am I? Do you do distribute in? Do we do distribute in absolute value? No. Only when you're in what? Parentheses. I'm going to do what? Minus 1 on both sides. Give me a second because I'm... Okay, I'm going to have to expand this right here. Okay, I'm going to do minus 1 on what? On both sides. And I'm left with what? 4 with the absolute value of 2x minus 5 is greater than? 20. What do I do now? Divide all of it by what? So it now becomes 2x, absolute value 2x minus 5 is greater than 5. Now I'm able to decide what? It's positive, correct? And what else? And it's going to be and or? Isn't it or? Greater than or less than? Is greater than or less than? I'm sorry. Is or, oh my gosh. Is greater going to be or and? Or. So that means I'm going to do what? 2x minus 5 is greater than 5, or 2x minus 5 is what? less than negative? Less than negative 5. Am I able to work it out now? So I'm going to add 5 to both sides. 2x is greater than. What's 5 plus 5? And now I'm going to do what? Divide by 2, which gives me x is greater than, or I'm going to add again 5 to both sides. 2x is less than, what's negative 5 plus 5? Can I divide by 2? Can you divide by 2? Who you solving for? Who you solving for? Are we not solving for x? So x is less than 0. And if I was to graph it, I am going to have my 5 here and my 0 here. Is my 5 going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the, and my 0 is going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the left. All right, can I go on to the next slide? Everybody wrote this, or you need a little bit more time? Remember, you always could go back to the video to help you out. All right. Now, notice it says solve the inequality, graph the solution if possible. If it's all real numbers, you're basically graphing the whole number line, right? Because is it the whole number line or on the whole number lines that are correct? Now let's look here. The absolute value of x is less than or equal to 3.5. Is this positive? Is a 3.5 positive? So, and it's going to be? That means it needs to intersect, right? So I'm going to have x is less than 3.5 and x is what? That's 8. And I'm going to graph it. I have a negative here, 3.5, and I have a positive 3.5. It's going to be open or closed circle for the first x. Close, and I'm going to the left. And what about the negative 3.5? It's going to be open or closed. And I'm going to the, so it is connecting and it is what? Intersecting, right? There's intersecting. All right, what about number 2? What's happening on number 2? It's going to be what? No solution because it's less than and it's a negative. It is less than and it's a negative. We good here? I'm going to expand. All right, so let's determine. Is my 11, I have no numbers outside my what? My absolute value, I have no numbers around it. But is my 11 positive or negative? It's positive, and it's going to be what? And or? And. When it's less than or equal to, it's going to be and. When it's greater than or equal to, it's going to be or. All right, so I'm going to have what? 2w minus 1 is less than 11 and 2w minus 1 what? Greater than? Negative 11. Ooh, it's so small there. Yes. 11. All right, I'm going to have what? Plus 1 on both sides, which gives me what? 2w is less than? What's 11 plus 1? And I'm going to do what now? Divide by what? W is less than, oops, I don't know what I did with that. Thought it was a B, V. W is less than 6. And I'm going to add 1 to both. 2W is what now? Greater than? What's negative 11 plus 1? And I'm going to divide by 2, which gives me W is negative 5. Can I graph? Negative 5 here and 6. Is my 6 going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the left. Am I negative 5 going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the right. Now, can I rewrite this? Remember, when it's combined, you're going to have what? W is going to be where? In the middle, right? And I know that W is going to be greater than negative 5. What's going to happen with my 6? Is my 6 going to be what to the W? My 6 is going to be what? Greater than W. Got it? All right. Let me know if you wrote this, so I'm going next to another one. The next slide. I want to make sure that we have some examples. Yes. I want to make sure that we get through some examples. Did everybody write this down? All right. Number 4. Is my 8 positive? So that means it's going to be what? Now I know that it's positive. It's going to be or. It's greater than. So I'm going to have what? X plus 3 is greater than 8. Or X plus 3 is less than? Negative 8. I'm going to work it out. X is what? Greater than, what's 8 minus 3? 5. Or less, what's negative 8 minus 3? Negative what? Can I graph? So I'm going to have 5 here and negative 11 here. Is my 5 going to be positive or closed or opened? And I'm going to the?
Right.
What about negative 11? It's going to be open or closed?
Open.
And it's going to the left. They're going different, opposite ways. And what? And there's an or. Number 5. What is going on number 5? Is my absolute value standing on its own? Who's with my absolute value? A what? A negative 3, right? So I'm going to add 3 to what? To my negative 6, and I'm left with the absolute value of n plus 2 is greater than or equal to negative 3. Now, I'm able to say it's going to be what? Because it's negative, correct? N is greater than. All real number. All real numbers is when, first, the all real number and no solution are going to have what? Both are going to be negative, correct? But in all real numbers, if it's greater than or greater than or equal to, it's going to be all real number. If it's less than or less than equal to, I have no solution. Why? Remember that anything that is inside, see? Let's say I have negative 6 here. and this is negative 6. Oh, no, let's put another number. That won't be a great example. What's the absolute value of negative 6? 6. Is 6 greater than negative 7? No? Yes, that's why it's all real numbers. Whatever number I'm going to write in that absolute value. Okay. But now let's say I have what? Less than. Correct? What's my absolute value of negative 6? 6 is less than negative 7. Is that true? That's why it's called no solution. All right. You know what? I'll just leave that there. Let me expand number 6. All right. Now I have what here? I have a 3 in front of my absolute value, and I have also what? A negative 7, right? What should I get rid of first? So I can start leaving my absolute value. So it's going to be what? I'm going to add 8. Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. I'm going to add 7. So I'm going to leave with what? 3 to the absolute value of D plus 1 is greater than 6. What do I do now to get rid of that 3? Divide by 3, correct. So I'm going to be left with D plus 1. Absolute value of D plus 1 is greater than or equal to? 2, right? So now I'm able to decide, is this positive or negative? It's positive. Is it going to be and or? Or. So I'm going to have D plus 1 is greater than or equal to 2. Or D plus 1 is what? Negative 2. So I'm going to work it out. I'm going to have minus 1 on both sides. D is greater than or equal to? Huh? What's 2 minus 1? No. 1. Or D is less than or equal to, what's negative 2 minus 1? Negative what? Negative 3. Can I graph? So I'm going to have negative 3 here and 1. Is the 1 going to be open or closed? And it's going to the right or to the left? What about negative 3? Is it going to be open or closed? And I'm going to the... There you go. That's your answer.